All right, welcome back to How to Transition from Law Enforcement to Corporate Security. I'm Scott Walker, and I'm here with Greg Bowman from the Facebook, or can we say that? Maybe I could edit that out. I shouldn't have said
Well,
Facebook.
I think you already said it, so, a little
Yeah,
late at that point.
and I don't edit. I told you that. Yeah, sorry, I already messed it up. Greg and I have talked a lot about transitioning. Greg comes out of a law enforcement background, of course, like every guest on this show. You have a unique experience. You came out of a command staff role, and I'll let you tell your story. But let's start off where I always start off. Per the advice of Amanda Lewis, what helped you and what hurt you in your transition story?
Yeah, no, good to chat with you as always, and contribute to the ongoing effort to help those from the blue brother and sisterhood make that jump. And we all know have worked with the folks that are perfectly happy leaving law enforcement and being the marshal at the golf course. And for those,
That's right.
Bravo, more power to you. Some of us like myself are still trying to figure out what we want to be when we grow up, and it's a work in progress. That's all I can say.
Yeah. Yeah, it's continual. It never stops, right?
It does not. I had a wonderful law enforcement career, about 23 years. Explains a few of the gray hairs that I have. Got to do a lot of really cool things. Motors was probably my best assignment, and those that have not, I'm sorry you just couldn't make it, but we don't look down on you too much. But
not everybody can polish those boots. Is that like it's like a whole day of training in motor school where you get to
the bike, the boots, everything, and you have to know the location of all the perfectly placed plate glass windows to ride by. So when you're riding by,
look.
You can look. Yeah, so it's a skill.
Yep. No, I agree. You have to be the most fit on the department too, apparently.
That was always that was a little further down in my repertoire, but we won't go there.
Well, now I got to ask you though, because you brought up motors. So, are you a Harley guy? Are you a Kawasaki guy? Are you a BMW guy? What'd you ride?
I rode BMW and Harley. I did both.
Okay.
And,
all right. And you prefer both. BMW, clearly, right?
For highway work, I would lean towards the BMW. The Harleys I had were great around town, just that torque and the thunder that went by, but up on the highway, it gassed out a little bit. So I would
when you need to get up and move,
greatly definitely exceed the speed limit. We would never do such a thing. But if one were to, it was a little more challenging.
Sorry, we diverted into the motor schools. A buddy of mine, fellow podcaster, Motor Cop, would be happy that I'm talking about this because I always give him a hard time about polishing his boots. So
not everybody could do it. So I'm right there with Motor Cop on following his stuff. So he's got my heart here.
Yeah, that's right. So I derailed your thought probably there. I was asking you what helped you, what hurt you in your transition. What do you think worked for you and worked well, and what didn't?
Yeah, I reached. I think you and I talked about it the other day. I hit a point one day when I realized that it wasn't fun for me anymore, and I had some life challenges going on, and I decided that if I'm going to make some jumps, let's do this. And I told my kids while they were growing up, hey, pursue what you want to do and be happy with what you do, and you're going to enjoy yourself. And I hit that point where I couldn't say that anymore, and decided to make the jump. And for me, life lesson number one in that sense was I didn't research what was out there enough. My limited viewpoint of what corporate security encompassed was this real narrow little slice of, well, I've worked with loss prevention folks and taking, theft calls, and I guess maybe, I'll look at that, and ended up starting with a retail company here in the Bay Area as a regional loss prevention manager. And it was not my thing. It just wasn't my thing at all. I realized that pretty early on.
I love when we get little bits like this. Talk about really quickly in 2 seconds what the duties of a regional LPM are, a loss prevention manager are. Because people who watch this aren't going to know, and they're not going to know why it wasn't a good fit for you. So let's talk about that.
Well, the listing itself, you manage a loss prevention agent, so uniformed and/or plainclothes presence who are in the stores conducting loss prevention activities, apprehending shoplifters, etc. And then, kind of a minor detail of safety, environmental health and safety duties.
Oh,
And I
interesting.
thought, okay,
Okay.
well, you're in the store. It makes sense to leverage a presence that's there, efficiency. I got you. It turned into health and safety audits were almost kind of the full-time thing. There's only so many times you can check a fire extinguisher or to make sure that the egress door out the back was not blocked
Right.
or things in that vein. And, a lot of hardworking people in the LP world and connected
That's right.
wonderfully with a lot of them in LinkedIn, and they do a phenomenal job. It just wasn't what I was looking for. And
It wasn't even something that is within your wheelhouse as far as the safety component goes. Did they give you training? Did they give you any kind of like guidance, or was it just kind of like, hey, good luck, learn on your own?
no, there was some basic training that went with it. Of, almost an audit checklist of, okay,
Okay.
make sure, and Mongo here, I can follow a
Yeah,
checklist.
I can pull that
So
checklist.
can you
Well, you
fire me
wrote
up on
tickets, so it's
spot?
really
Yeah.
very similar.
They make it clear what the expectations were. It was back to my not fully researching, talking to people about, hey, what is out there in this whole corporate security world that may be in my wheelhouse or may give me some passion, or what can I get excited about? And that
Okay.
just wasn't it. Which
Yeah.
it was a great opportunity to learn what I didn't want to do, and meet some really good people along the way, the few months that I was there. But ultimately, that decision was to pivot and move another direction. And that's where starting to talk to people became more critical in that sense.
Who, let me back up really quickly because again, it's fascinating to hear where people started. And was LinkedIn did LinkedIn play a role, or how did you find that first LP role or that first private sector role? I'll say, was it through LinkedIn or through kind of your job search?
Both, yeah, it
Okay.
was in hindsight, hindsight's always so great for clarity and limiting how I searched. What did I search for? What were my search terms?
Yeah. Yeah.
I had it so stuck in my brain that corporate security was just this little tiny world of, okay, you got LP, maybe you like to manage an office building or a vendor guard manager, contract manager kind of thing. I'm like, okay, that's what I knew. Now that's where that limited my viewpoint and my angle. So,
And
those
so
were the
that
terms I
limited
was
your
searching for.
searches. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All
So,
right.
so the searches that I was getting were related to those very narrow fields. And now,
Mm.
you live and learn. And now we know that corporate security is this animal that
It's
I
huge.
still find jobs. I see job listings and think, what does that do? That sounds kind of cool, but it's that evolving process.
So you're getting ready to make, or you figure out your first private sector opportunity was not a good fit. How long did that take you to figure that out? And what was the gut check that you were like, I gotta go?
I look for internal satisfaction, and
Mm.
I'm a pretty simple guy. I can do a lot of things and be fairly happy, but I want to have some excitement about it. I want to have some passion and some interest to make it happen. We can all, check the box and move along, and if people are willing to do that, great, go do it. That's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to make impact. I wanted to be a contributing member of an organization or a team where I could leverage what my past skills were with management, coming out of being a command staff member and running a police department, running a city for a short period of time. Let me
Right.
leverage those things and do what I like doing, and just checking an audit box, it wasn't it, and it wasn't going to be it. So I knew probably 6 8 weeks into it that once
Okay.
reality kind of set in of what the initial expectation were versus reality, that yeah, this just isn't going to be it for me. And started having some conversations. Okay, now what's the next chapter look like for me?
Did mentorship play a role at all when you're getting ready to look for that next role, or did you just go back out kind of into the world and say, okay, now I have a much broader understanding of the private sector, and let me try and apply different search terms, or how did you do that?
Yeah, there was a couple prongs on that one. A guy that I went to the academy with, back in the ancient days, had made the transition to the private sector some years back. So I reached out to him and reconnected and got some input and
Nice.
hey, can you take a look at my resume to help me understand where I'm at? And a family member of mine works for a tech company, not in security, but in another field. But he's fairly high up in their managerial uh, area. So it was that, hey, help me understand, what am I trying to figure out? Ask me those hard questions. And between those two, they really helped me understand maybe more so what I was trying to find and what I was looking for, or conversely, what I wasn't looking for. and
Okay.
that's a critical point to identify as well.
No, which is huge. I mean, we were just talking about, how do we help people with their transition? Because I know you do a lot of outreach as well, and you help people when they have questions or they want you to look at their resume. And we were talking about, where do you start with somebody? And it's like, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to do when you leave law enforcement? And they just don't have any concept of what's out there. I mean, LinkedIn helps a lot,
Yeah.
and there's other tools out there, and there's a lot of good resources on the internet, but um, the next opportunity that you had, do you think you would have had that had you not done that outreach and gone out and to kind of researched the world and made those actual physical contacts with people and talked to them about their experiences there?
Not at all, not at all, because my next jump from retail was into the data center world, and I
Uh,
was like a lot of people that a data what?
yeah.
Who? I what's this language you're speaking? I had no idea what it was, and um, once you start learning and having these conversations, it's oh, I see what you're getting at. Okay, so that got me onto that path of hey, this might be a good fit for you. Why don't you take a look at the job description, take a look at what it involves, and see if it resonates in some way with you.
Can you give us a quick rundown of what that is? I mean, you've now done it for a couple major brands.
Yeah.
What is a security data center security manager do for the folks that are following along at home?
Those that know me and appreciate my sense of humor, it is not cleaning toilets as I usually tell them. But that falls under the other duties as assigned. Um, it's you're responsible for a small community in many ways. It's not only managing a physical security program in the typical sense, so hardware, layers of security, access control, surveillance. You might have an operations center. You have a contract guard force. Now we get into that whole nuance with you recognize the term co-employment. How do
Oh
you
yeah.
manage a guard force against a scope of work or a scope of service, an SOS, and you start getting blank looks of I don't know what you're saying, but I'm going with it. So um, and a lot of it is for law enforcement folks. A lot of this is what you've been doing in the past. It's people management, it's community building, it's rapport, it's building relationships with your coworkers because not one person is running this entire site. You've got to work with people whose priorities are much different than your own, while everyone's trying to drive towards their own, I don't want to say goal, it's never ending, but this journey that they're on the path that's laid out for their respective pillar. So there's a lot of nuance that really translate well, but you have to learn a whole new industry language. I always joke. I thought law enforcement had a lot of acronyms. I'd come out of my first couple meetings with the two tech companies with a page of notes, and I'd have to ask them, okay, what does this mean? Because I have no idea what language you people are speaking. It's you have to be open to recognizing that you don't know everything. You probably never will, and if you're showing some humility, it's recognize what you don't know and be willing to ask and say, I need help, because I don't get it.
It's so important I find I call it finding a champion or finding a stakeholder
Yeah.
and connecting with them. But again, this is really not any different than when you were in a leadership role in the police department. You're reaching out to city council, you're reaching out to your county partners. The one good thing law enforcement officers have is that ability to talk to people.
Yeah.
If you can continue to do that and not be arrogant, I think that is you're a great point. Um, so let's talk about failures. I know nobody likes to hear or talk about these things, but I've been trying to more. What would you do differently, or where did you fail? What can you share with us that tactically didn't work for you?
Yeah, that's a great one, Scott. I think a lot of us that come out of law enforcement, especially, like me coming out of a high ranking position, we come into maybe a new profession thinking, well, I achieved this in my previous life, so I'm maybe deserving of similar rank, respect,
Yeah.
et cetera, in the private sector. And I hate to call it an entitlement, but it's a sense of I've made accomplishments. I think some of that should translate over. And it's no different than when a lot of us were just off of FTO, is that snot-nosed rookie where, yeah, it says police officer on it. You haven't earned your stripes yet. It may say deputy sheriff. You haven't earned it yet. You got to put some time in the trenches and learn. For me, it was having a couple of good mentors on my team and my manager at the time that said, hey, yeah, I need to break this down for you a little bit here, but yeah, you know a lot and you got some really good stuff you're bringing to the team, but you don't know a whole lot yet. You've only been at this for a year, 6 months, a year and a half, so you got a lot to learn. So maybe back it off a notch and open up and learn and listen, and let's walk you through. So it was a good sense of humility to, yeah, I don't know everything. I'm not going to, and I need to rely on people that have been doing this for 15, 20 years in this profession that know what they're doing and trust what they're willing to share with me, because that's a big part of it is that willingness to, hey, let me help you out. And those of us in law enforcement, we had maybe that older, more seasoned person at some point that took you under their wing and said, yeah, that's great, kid. Come on, let's go chat. Jump in the car for a little while. Let's go ride around. We need to have a talk.
Right, right. Yeah, there's always a veteran somewhere in the organization, and you'll be able to find them. And fortunately, I mean, I think too, you went to two brands that have extensive security programs, and so you could probably rely on some level of some layers of top cover above you that can help guide you. And what do you think made you best prepared for those interviews? Because you were going from an LPM, in a retail security world, to the DC world, in a very high tech. How did you prepare for that jump and that transition? Because that's a transition unto itself. People might not understand that, but it really is.
Yeah, the tech world is a unique animal. It really is. And if you're watching this, you're going to find me on LinkedIn. You'll see that I work for AWS initially. Now with Facebook, since you dimed me off, right at the start of the run.
I messed it up already.
But like with AWS, a lot of this is open source. Their leadership principles, their interviewing method, the STAR method is what they use. It's no secret. And fortunately, I had my relative that worked in that pillar to say, hey, look these things up, focus really on these. And literally before my interview loop with them, I had 3 or 4 pages of handwritten notes of, okay, this leadership principle is this, here's what it means. And I would write 3 or 4 examples from my previous world in law enforcement of how it related to that, how it translated over. Describe a time when you had to do this. Okay, great. I had them at the top of my mind, so I wasn't sitting there fumbling, going, I'll get back to you in a minute here. And I think that's I know we're diverging a little bit. I think this is a really key point is knowing how your previous skills translate to a world that you may not know a lot. I didn't know squat about data centers when I first started, but I knew enough about managerial experience, managing people, overseeing programmatic endeavors, budget development, that I could speak to those. And this is now a business where the public sector, you're going to get your funding for the most part, and you have to account for it, but go do it. Now you're working for profit. That's a big shift, and it becomes the bottom line. So how efficiently are you managing those things? And a lot of people coming out have those skills. They may not know it, but they have that background to be able to translate to that world. So preparation was really key in that sense.
Did you use any kind of mentorship there? Talk to anybody who had been at these types of roles previously, or were you able to find anybody that you could kind of like, hey, tell me what can I expect? What kind of questions am I going to get? Or because I know a lot of people will do that. They'll reach out to like previous employees and things like that.
Yeah, I tried through LinkedIn. Didn't have much success. And I get people are busy, and I just may not have picked the right people or whatever it is. Which is why I'm pretty sensitive to now. I think we all get hit up a lot on LinkedIn. Hey, I'm looking at your company, or I'm looking to transition out of law enforcement. Do you have 5 minutes to chat? Absolutely. Here's my number. Give me a call sometime. So I didn't quite have that, and as again the evolving process of now I know where to look a little bit better, or I know how to look and what I'm looking for, rather than that blind shot in the dark.
Which is a good question to ask because now you've transitioned successfully multiple times. What do you like to see from somebody who's eager to make the transition from law enforcement? How do you want them to reach out to you, or do you want them to reach out to you a specific way, or do you just not, like whatever, just hit me up? What do you like to see? How can they be successful even with that outreach?
It's initiative. Nobody's going to hand anybody anything. If you
That's
want
right.
it, go get it.
Yeah,
And I'm open to receiving input or solicitations from people on LinkedIn, et cetera. Hey, looking to make the transition. Start early. Start looking at what you want to do and research what you want to do. And part of that research may be reaching out to people like me. Hey, Greg, I see you're in the data center world. What's it like? I'll spend 15 minutes on the phone with you and tell you what it's like. You may decide it's not your cup of tea, which is
that's it.
great. Or I can give you some suggestions. Have you thought about EP? Have you thought about this, or have you thought about that? And seeing what's out there, and that's at the end of the day, nobody's going to drive up and hand you the silver platter. Oh my God, you just left law enforcement after 25 years. Here, because there's 1,000 of you folks out there that are all vying for some of these positions. So you got to be hungry and you got to go get it and chase it down.
No, I totally agree. And one of the reasons why I started doing this is because, we're going to see a massive shift of folks coming out of law enforcement, coming to the private sector.
Yeah,
And I want them to be successful. And because I have the sense of urgency in two things. One is that we're going to have tons of people coming from the private sector or coming to the private sector from government now more than ever because of what's been going on for the last year.
yeah,
And as well as, 20 years ago, we had a huge spike in hiring, and those folks are timing out as far as their careers are going, and they're getting their 20 and 25-year in their profession, and they're going to be able to transition and retire and come work, but they can't retire. Too young to retire, can't go fishing.
exactly.
And now we've seen a need for folks who understand resiliency and understand how to manage a crisis. Over the last year and a half, we've been in a real crisis, and we've seen businesses go under and businesses become acquired. And so I want them to be aware of what some of these challenges are, which is great to talk to somebody like yourself who's been around the block several times now. And and I'll give you the last word. What can they do to be successful in their transition?
Research, plan, start early if you can. Take a look at your resume. I think you and I talked about it earlier of and I've looked at a couple resumes that, I ran a dope squad and we knocked, 30 doors down a day and recovered 5 pounds of dope and 30 guns. And thinking that's great. But the
That's awesome.
23-year-old recruiter that's going to see your resume
That's right.
isn't going to care about that. But if you could tell me about how you managed your program against your budget and the metrics of case clearance or the number of people you manage versus an attrition rate and build it into a metric that translates to the business arena, hey, now we're talking. Now we're cooking with some gas. So, reach out to people and ask for help. Talk to a resume writer, talk to people that are in the field that send your resume, no matter what it looks like. I'll take a look at it and give you what little I know with my crayons. I'll mark it up. But, ask for help because there are resources out there like you, like me, Carlos, Brian. A lot of these guys will talk to you and spend 10 minutes with you. So figure out what you want to do, try to figure that out, and prep yourself the best you can to be as successful as you can.
That's a great way to end it, Greg. I really appreciate you being on the show and coming and talking with us. And people at home, Greg will be linked below. But make sure you're sharing this with your partners and you're liking these and you're commenting below. Both Greg and I will respond if you do comment, if you have a question, or if you want to see us talk about something different, something else, another topic perhaps that you're running into a problem. Put that down in the comments. We'll answer them. Either in the comments or we'll maybe answer them on the next show that we do. So, Greg, again, thank you so much for doing this. I know it's important to you to help these folks transition as well. So take care.
Thanks, Scott.